So moving into part 2, we've got the CLI firewall open, and we can see that it's asking for us to go through the interactive prompts, what we don't want. So let me just type in no here and run a show mode. We can see that the firewall is in multiple mode, and if we do a show version, we can see that we can run 20 contexts at the same time, which is perfect. All right, so we're in the system context here, and to actually start configuring, and what I done, if you didn't know, is we would just say mode multiple, and that will take us from single context into multiple mode. But when you do mode multiple, it will reboot the box, so you just need to keep that in mind. Now we're here in the system context, and this is where we do all the configuration of the interfaces. And the first thing that I need to do is just do the sub interfaces. So the first one, let me have a look at the diagram again. And we're doing our sub interfaces across to the DMZ router first. So on Ethernet 1, interface, Ethernet 1. For sub interfaces, the main interface needs to be up. So I no shut Ethernet 1. Then I say interface E1.100. That's going to be in VLAN 100. Exit out of that. Then I say for interface E1.200, that's going to be in VLAN 200. Okay, and we also have sub interfaces on the other side going across to our customer devices. They are on Ethernet 0. So on Ethernet 0 on the firewall, what I need to do is say for interface E0.10, that will be in VLAN 10. And for interface E0.20, that will be in VLAN 20. Also, I didn't bring up that interface, so for interface E0, let's no shut the main interface. Let's have a look at that configuration, and hopefully I can remember which one goes where. Show interface IP brief. Yeah, and we have all of our interfaces are up, and they are allocated. Okay, so next thing I need to do is actually do the configuration, and probably I'll get a pen and a paper just to write down which interface goes where. So E0.10 goes to customer 1 inside interface. E0.20 goes to customer 2 inside. E1.100 is for customer 1 DMZ, and E1.200 is for customer 2 going to the DMZ. Alright, what I need to do on the ASA, if I exit out of this and I say just going to create our contexts. So the first one I say context customer 1, and you need to realize that identify the admin context first using the admin context. So it should create it automatically, but if it doesn't, we just say admin context admin. Now if I say show context, we can see that the admin context has been created, but the URL has not been entered. So let's go into this again, admin context admin, and let's do our URL where it's going to actually save the admin context configuration file. So it's going to save it on disk 0, and we're just going to say that it's called admin.cfg. All right, so let me say context admin. Now if I do show context, and if I look in the directory, we can see that it has saved the admin.cfg, which is exactly what I want to see. All right, let me continue on with the other contexts. So the first one is going to be called context customer 1, and this is case sensitive, so if it was a lowercase c, it will be a totally different context. And I'm going to allocate the interfaces. So the first interface that I'm going to allocate is E0.10. I'm going to call that the inside. Now this inside does not mean it will be the inside where it takes the security levels. It's just an alias. I could call this something else. I could call this customer 1 if I wanted to, but I will call it inside so that I know what I'm doing. And also I'm going to allocate E1.100 to the DMZ. E1.100, I'm going to call that DMZ. And we have to know where the configuration file is going to be stored. It already has one here, but hopefully I'm going to overwrite that now. So if I say config URL disk 0, I'm going to say customer1.cfg. Hopefully that's overwritten that now. So if I now say more for customer 1.cfg, it looks like we already had some configuration on there. So what I'm going to try and do is remove those config files. So if I exit out of this and I say remove, maybe it's not remove, maybe it's delete customer 1.cfg. Let's delete that first one and also delete customer 2.cfg. Let's look in the directory. Okay, I don't see them now. Let's look in the show context. It's still there. I'm going to go back and configure it again. So for context customer 1, the config URL is here. Okay, it's creating that. Now we're going to do the same for context 2. So context customer 2, let's allocate some interfaces. The first one that I'm going to allocate is E0.20, E0.20. That is also going to be called inside, and allocate E1.200. Let me call that something different. So I'll call that customer 2-DMZ. Alright, so it's not valid. Let me see if it's valid if I make it an underscore. Yeah, so the underscore it takes. And then also let's say config dash URL for disk 0 customer 2.cfg. Let's have a look at those contexts. Show context. Excellent. So the contexts have been created. Guys, I have a request from you. If you're enjoying the free content, I'm looking to increase my subscriber count to 4,000 subscribers by June. But I can only do that if you give me the play special. Do you want to know what the play special is? Press like and yeah, subscribe. Okay, back to the video. Now we need to do the configuration under those contexts. So if I exit out of this and I do the configuration on customer 1 first, and to do that I say change to context customer 1. And the reason you know it's changed is because this customer 1 is attached at the end. So now we know that we're in the customer 1 context. And obviously you can allocate different users and administrators where if they were coming from customer 1, they would only be able to get into customer 1 context if they had admin rights to the ASA. So let's do a show interface IP brief. So we can see that this inside interface has already been assigned address of 192.168.10.1, which is excellent, but we also need to assign the DMZ. Now to assign the DMZ, it's actually called DMZ. So I would say interface DMZ, say name if, let's call it DMZ. We're going to give it a security level of 80, and we're going to give it an IP address of 10.1.1.1 on a /24. Let's save that. And before we move on, let's see if we can ping the DMZ, which is 10.1.1.10. So ping 10.1.1.10, which we can. And let's see if we can ping customer 1, which we shouldn't be able to because we're going from a lower interface to a higher interface. But let's see if it works. So ping 192.168.10.10. Oh, which we can. I wonder what the security level is on the other side. But it does prove that we've got reachability. But I'm wondering why that actually... Oh, because we're not pinging through. We're actually pinging from the ASA directly. So that is correct. The other thing that I need to do is actually do the routing protocol, which I don't think I've done on the DMZ. Shall I do that now? Yeah. So this one is OSPF. So router OSPF 1. Network. The first one is 192.168.10.0. in area 0. Okay, because we're doing it on an ASA, we need to put the actual normal mask, not a wildcard mask. So let's say 255.255.255.0 in area 0. And the next one is network 10.1.1.0, 255.255.255.0, which is also in area 0, not a do. So let me say show OSPF neighbors. So we have a neighbor with the DMZ, which is there, and we also have one with our inside. So theoretically, our inside network should now be able to ping all the way across to 10.1.1.10. Let's see if that works. So if I jump on our inside customer 1 R2 here, Let's first do a show IP route. So we have a static route, which I want to get rid of. That shouldn't be there. Show run IP route, include IP route. And we still have a route via OSPF to our 10.1.1 network. So do ping 10.1.1.10 and it is reachable. Excellent. So let's save that. And also let's do the same for our customer 2. And you wouldn't be able to do this normally because we would have policies to say that we can't change from one context to the other, but because I'm the admin, I can do it directly from customer 1. So interface inside, name if will be inside. IP address will be 172.16.0.1. No shut that interface. Let's see if I can ping 172.16.0.10, which I can. And let's do the configuration for interface customer to DMZ. Name if is going to be DMZ. Security level, let's just give it 50 and an IP address of 10.1.2.1 on a /24. Let's no shut that interface. Let's see if I can ping 10.1.2.10, which I can. And let's give reachability across the whole from customer 2 to the DMZ using EIGRP. So router EIGRP 100, no auto summary. For the first network, which is 10.1.2.0, and the next one, which is 172.16.0.0, show EIGRP neighbors. Well, we've got one which is to 10.1.2.10, but we don't have the other one. So let's see if I've done the configuration on customer 2R2 for EIGRP. If I do a show run section router EIGRP, no, I didn't. So if I go on here, conf t router EIGRP 100, no auto summary, and then say network 172.16.0.0, and we see that the adjacency comes up. So now theoretically from here, do ping 10.1.2.10. Well, I would have thought that we could ping all the way across. Let's have a look. Do show IP route. Yeah, let's get rid of our static route. Do show run, include IP route. Do ping 10.1.2.10. That's what I'm expecting to be able to ping. Okay, so the reason why I can't ping that is because I need to put the fix-up protocol on the ASA to allow pings to go all the way through. So if I done a show run policy map for the global policy, and we see that ICMP is not allowed here, but if I was to go on to change to context customer 1 and I done the same command, you see that ICMP is allowed, and you need to have that ICMP allowed to ping through the ASA. So let's change back, change to context customer 2. Let's just do our quick command, which is fix up protocol ICMP. Now let's jump back onto customer 2, try that ping again, and you see that the ping works. Alright, and that's a good example of where you can enable ICMP for one customer through a global policy, but it was not enabled for the other one. So we can remove that command again, and you could do your own ACLs, your own IP addressing. It's literally like two separate firewalls. There are certain protocols that don't work. I will probably try and find them and put them on the screen, but from the top of my head, I would know that RIP doesn't work, threat detection, OSPF version 3, and there's some remote VPN access parts that don't work. But I will find those and I'll put them on the screen here. But that's it for in regards to context. I will see you in the next video.